Cool. Well, welcome here. We're going to do a quick little break from some gaming here. We're actually going to talk because I wanted to do this for a while here. I wanted to kind of go through BlizzCon. I wanted to talk about the announcements. I wanted to watch some of the trailers. I wanted to do some stuff on stream here. I want to put something together for the old YouTubes and whatnot because we haven't been on there in a while and just kind of put my thoughts out there and whatnot. Now, you're welcome to talk here because while this is a going to be looking for like a YouTube thing here, we also want this to be a discussion of sorts. So if you got some points or some comments or whatever, feel free. We'll participate, and then it'll be archived for all of time in the annals of the YouTube universe. So as this is primarily has been a Warcraft stream, although we've been playing a lot of Overwatch lately. I do want to start off by just talking about the WoW news, and then we'll kind of work our way through from there. So as I've been doing a lot of classic WoW, a big announcement, quote unquote, coming out of BlizzCon for the classic WoW front was the announcement for the date of Phase 2. So as we were kind of talking about right before we started recording, or maybe right as I started recording, we are calling it Phase 2. Blizzard broke out the planned phases or whatever, which basically encompasses two of the patches, if I remember correct. So Phase 1 was 1.1, 1.2, and then Phase 2 will be 1.2, 1.3, so on and so forth. The important thing being Phase 1 was the initial launch of the game in Molten Core. Phase 2 was originally designed to be the release of, and the big things here that we'll be talking about is world bosses, not the Dragons of Nightmare. So we're getting Doomlord Kha'Zix and Azragos. We're getting the Key Ring, which is a big deal because it's going to save a lot of bag space, which is super great. We were supposed to be getting Dire Maul, but Blizzard opted to release Dire Maul prior to the actual launch of Phase 2. So we've had Dire Maul for a few weeks now. So people have been farming their tomes and their herbs and all that stuff and getting some of their upgrades, better mage water, all that jazz. And then the final part of it, which is probably going to be the most impactful, is the introduction of the honor system. And the important distinction there being that it's just the honor system, not battlegrounds themselves. So when you interact with a Horde player, if you're Alliance, or an Alliance player, if you're Horde in the world, right now as it stands, you kill them and you're asserting your dominance, but there's really no benefit to it other than if they were like trying to steal your Black Lotus or something like that, you get rid of them. Now, with the coming of Phase 2, you're going to get honor points. And you'll be able to start grinding those ranks, working your way up towards the ultimate goal of rank 14 if you're a tryhard, or whatever the appropriate rank for the gear. For the gear that you're looking for along the way is. So just kind of looking at that and expecting that as we go forward. Phase 2 is going to be the launch of that, and so there's a lot of people that are looking to make the rank 14 push, which means they're very likely, and myself, like I'm not looking to go all the way to rank 14, but I am looking to do a little bit of laddering and grinding in the PvP world, and to get a head start on that prior to the Phase 3 launch of BGs means a lot of world PvP. So you'll expect to see, groups 2, 3, 4, 5 people potentially out in the world just hunting for the opposing faction and killing them. So if you are looking to level and you're at the upper end of the levels, beware, because you'll become an honorable target at like 46 or something like that. And that means that 60s will actually benefit from killing you as opposed to just doing it to grief you and whatever. So kind of keep an eye on that as we go forward. It could make Lotus farming, Rich Thorium Vein farming, things of that nature more difficult as we go forward. So just be conscious of that. And then who knows how long Phase 2 is going to last. There was no discussion with regards to Phase 3. But Phase 3 will be seeing the launch of Blackwing Lair and the actual introduction of Battlegrounds, which will then help progress that PvP leveling experience. But the big announcement was that it was going to come the week of the 12th, which is this coming week. We found out later in a blue post that on the actual 12th, on Tuesday, reset day, all that we're going to see is the initial implementation of the no layering across all servers. So if you've been watching my stream on Blamau, we lost layering a little while ago, so we've been one layer for a bit of time. But servers like Fairlena, Whitemane, and things of that nature will be losing their layers on Tuesday, period. So if you're on one of those servers, expect to see potentially longer queue times as we head into Phase 2. And then the rest of Phase 2 stuff, I think, is implemented on Thursday, the 14th. So that's when the possibility for World Boss spawns comes up, and that's when the honor system actually kicks off. So if you've got a hunting party on Tuesday, you're out there killing all the Horde in the world or all the Alliance in the world, and you're not getting honor, well, it's because honor hasn't actually been implemented yet. It was the week of the 12th is what they said instead of actually the 12th. So be ready for that and get excited. But that's kind of the classic news. With regards to the rest of WoW, I was going to play on stream here. So we're going to watch Badass trailer. Hopefully it's not too loud. And we'll kind of go into the details here in a second.
Ice Crown. A monument to our suffering. The veil between life and death. Where a usurper sits on a frozen throne. But no king rules forever. Unfit to wear this crown. To wield so much power.
That power will be your prison.
This world is a prison.
Pre-purchase now. So obviously, super, super, super awesome, right? That's such a cool trailer. Very interested to know more. So we'll be looking into that. But let's get into some of the details of it. And let's talk about Shadowlands. So Shadowlands was leaked. We kind of knew that the title was coming out, but we didn't actually know exactly what it was going to contain. And so they went into more details, and I'm not just going to show all the videos and stuff. But we'll kind of talk through, and I'll kind of give my thoughts on it as we go forward, my concerns, things of that nature, as we go into the bits and pieces of it. So Shadowlands is the name of the expansion. No release date, anything of that nature, but that'll be our 9.0. Things that they went into, and you can check it out on Wowhead or on the official World of Warcraft website and stuff. They've got kind of a breakdown. I'm just going to kind of be going through here. But one of the big features that we're looking forward to, or interested to know more about, I guess, is the idea of covenants. So it's going to be one of the new big things. So I guess the big features talk about there's going to be covenants, which are sort of like factions that you align yourself with. They're going to enhance your abilities. We're going to see some major changes to the way the classes operate in terms of unpruning and adding a bunch of stuff back. We'll kind of go into that. Another big mechanical change to the way the game is going to play is we're doing a level squish. So that's been rumored, talked about. There were leaks of like internal surveys and stuff, and it turns out to be a thing. So max level will be 60 in Shadowlands. Gameplay experience starts at 50, so it'll be a 10 level scaling thing, and we'll kind of go into that in a second. We're going back to a linear progression in terms of the storyline. So there's 4 leveling zones, and there's, I guess, kind of 5 if you count the Maw, but you'll go in order as you go through and you'll level. That'll give you access to the various covenants that control each of the given ones, and we'll go from there. I think that's going to be good. But those are kind of the big things we know right now. No new races, although allied races have kind of taken over the idea of like new races for an expansion, so there likely will be allied races. We're expecting, or we know we're getting the Mechanomes and Volpera, and just in 8.3 coming up here whenever that drops. So there's probably going to be some sort of allied races as we go into 9.0, but no like, boxed races like the Draenei or whatever. No new class announced. There was rumors of a Tinkerer class. As of yet, there's been no discussion of any such thing, so not going to really look into that. But like we said, covenants is going to be one of the big things. So there's 4 covenants. Each covenant is associated with one of the given areas. So you've got a zone called Bastion that has the Kirin. There's Maldraxxus, which has the Necrolords. There's Ardenweld, which has the Night Fae, and then Ravendreth, which have the Venthyr. And they all kind of have their own vibe or whatever. The Bastion's kind of these big Valkyr kind of looking like light warriors or whatever. The Necrolords definitely have kind of a warlock, death knight, undead vibe, and their zone is very Scourge inspired. The Night Fae or whatever is kind of druidy, like night and fairies and happiness and the like Emerald Dream kind of thing. And then the Venthyr and Ravendreth is kind of a gothic vampire kind of vibe or whatever. So each covenant controls a different zone or whatever. There's kind of a theme that goes around it. We don't know a whole lot, but we do know that there's going to be a class-specific ability associated with each of them. So if you play a mage, depending on which covenant you choose, you're going to get a different ability depending on the covenant. You can only have one covenant at a time. I believe you can swap covenants, but it's not supposed to be particularly easy, so I think it's kind of discouraged. And then there's going to be a generic ability, so no matter what your class is, if you choose the Night Fae or whatever, then you're going to get, X ability or whatever. I'll see if I can find that in the summary. Let's see. So like the movement speed for the Kirin or Kyrian unburdens, so you just dissolve into anima, increases your movement speed by 300, slows your fall speed, and propels you forward for 4 seconds. Greatly reduces the radius at which people can detect you. So you kind of get like a 4-second like ghost skip thing that allows you to potentially move past stuff or whatever. The Necrolords, theirs is Transcend the Flesh, apparently, where you separate your soul from your body for 20 seconds. Your soul is invisible and untargetable, though your body remains vulnerable. This effect will end early if you move further than 60 yards from your body. When Transcend the Flesh ends or is canceled, your body rejoins with your soul. So you can, I guess, use it to scout. I don't know if your body transports to where you're at, kind of like a StarCraft, or with the I forget what the Protoss the name of the dudes are, but they like put their little shade out and then they blink to it. Or if you just return back and it's just kind of like a Eye of Kelrog kind of thing. Um, but we'll see with that. The Night Fae, you've got Soul Shape, where you turn into a Spirit Fox, increases your movement speed by 30%, causes enemies to ignore you, lasts 10 seconds or until canceled. And then I think it's persistent in a rested area. And then the Vampire dudes, the Venthyr, there's this Door of Shadows. You weld through the shadows, appearing at a target location. So I think it's like a dimension door, a blink, or something like that. So kind of movement-based abilities allows you to get places that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get. Those are like the generic ones. And then they went through some mage things in terms of the way that it like influences your spells and stuff. But we're going to need to see that more fleshed out. I assume those are all subject to change. But it gives a vibe. It gives you something to work with. The cool thing that I like that they talked about in the deep dive is, so the first time you play through, you have to play the story linearly. So you're going to go from zone to zone to zone to zone. You're going to ally with each of the covenants as you kind of work your way through. And that's going to give you a chance to kind of see how their abilities and stuff work. And then at the end, you actually choose which one you're going to ally with permanently. And then that kind of becomes your covenant of choice. You start building rep. You've got some followers and stuff that are associated with it. But for alts, once you've done it once on your main, you can skip all that nonsense. You can choose your covenant right off the bat with an alt, and you can start earning rep and working on like follower progression and stuff like that right out the gates. So it becomes slightly more alt friendly in that regard, because as you're leveling, you're actually getting progress. So when you hit max level, once you're 60, you're going to be able to be significantly further ahead than where you were with your main character. So it makes it a little bit easier to kind of catch up as you go, which is great. I like that as a concept. Let's see. So for instance, yeah, the mage abilities, here's the little slide thing that they had. So like Radiant Spark is the Kieran one. You conjure a Radiant Spark that causes arcane damage instantly and an additional amount of damage over 8 seconds. Your next 4 direct damaging abilities that hit the target affected by Radiant Spark deal increased a 25% increased damage, increasing up to 100% increase. So you put a dot on them, and then as you cast spells, they're going to do more and more and more, so you kind of build and burn. If you were to play a mage with the Necrolords, you get Contagion Bolt. It deals 5,000 shadow damage to the target, and then for the next 8 seconds, your single target spells cast on the afflicted enemy cause a disease that splashes to nearby enemies, dealing 3,000. So you put it on there, and then you get a window where you splash a bunch of AoE. So you, like, if you've got a boss fight with ads, that'd be great, because you put it on the boss, you put a dot on them, and then it's splashing out to the ads as you do damage during like a big burst window or something like that. If you were to be a mage with the Night Fae, their example is a ability called Shifting Power. Draws from the ground beneath you for 3 seconds, dealing 5,500 nature damage to nearby enemies over its duration. Every second spent channeling increases your haste. So it does a little bit of AoE splash damage as you channel, and then it gives you a 15-second haste buff that scales based on how long you're actually able to channel. So that can be useful. For instance, you're playing fire or something, you're trying to spam out fire bolts. That could be great. And then the final one, the Venthyr, Mirrors of Torment. Conjure 3 mirrors that rotate around the target enemy for 6 seconds. Whenever they cast an ability or a spell, they take 7,000 damage and are rooted. So depending on the fight, that could be useful. That could be brutal in PvP, although I don't know how that stuff's going to actually affect PvP. But those are examples of what they kind of showed. So we'll see. Those are obviously going to need a lot of tuning. We're going to need more information. Those numbers are very temporary, but they're going to be really cool. They've got some armor sets. So here's like on Wowhead, you can see the armor sets for the given like the Necrolords, the Night Fae, the vampire people, and then the Valkyrie looking guys or whatever. But there's specific armor sets. I think those are plate. So I don't think they're class specific, but I think they are type specific to the Covenant. So if you kind of work your way through, you can collect a bunch of different stuff. They've got some interesting back like aesthetics and stuff they're working with, some transmog stuff, which is neat, which is always great. The art team did an amazing job from everything we've seen so far, which is really, really cool. And then there's a soul bond mechanic that they're putting in where you can work with, you basically choose a follower from the given faction, you soul bond to them, and then you basically level them up from what I understand, and as they level up and they grow and progress, you gain abilities based on like your relationship with them. which will be really interesting to see, because that gives a lot of, if you've got like several soul bond options within several different trees, there's a lot of customization. So if everything is well balanced, it means that no one person should be, well, it gives you a lot of options. Not necessarily no one person plays the same game, but hopefully there's not just one meta build. There's like a variety of options, where you go, what you do, what your options are. So it's very promising, I would say. But by introducing a lot of variants like that, it creates a lot of potential problems in terms of how's it's going to scale in PvP, how's it going to scale in Mythic Plus, how's it going to scale in Raid. Is it going to be a one size fits all, like one given faction has an obvious advantage over the others in terms of class ability, so every warlock out there is going to be Necrolord or Night Fae or something like that because their one thing's OP and then there's no choice? Or are they going to do a pretty good job of giving you some options in there? We don't really know, as far as I know, how hard it is going to be to switch back and forth between the stuff. So I've got a lot of questions in terms of how it's going to play. It sounds interesting with the Covenant stuff. Like, I like the stuff they're saying, but I think we simply just need more information before we can make a genuine judgment with regards to the kind of gameplay and stuff there. So we're going to have to keep our eyes out for it. It's a step in the right direction because, again, it's going to give you more customization, but it's going to require a lot of work on Blizzard's part to get it right because it has a high potential to be awesome, but I also feel like it has a high potential to be an absolute disaster. So fingers crossed that they're going to allow for a sufficiently lengthy beta testing period and that they're going to listen to the feedback appropriately so that we're able to get the things right. Another exciting thing, I guess, that we kind of mentioned briefly is that they're talking about class unpruning. So over the years, they've been getting rid of abilities. They've been homogenizing. They've been kind of doing stuff. And they talked about how we're at a state in Warcraft where right now in the live retail game, you're playing a spec, not a class. So like I play in Raid, I'm a Affliction Warlock most of the time. And a lot of people will identify exclusively as I'm an Affliction Warlock, I'm a Destro Lock, I'm a Demo Lock. I think Warlock is doing better in terms of that than some other classes in terms of being able to swap between what you do for given things. But they play very different, and they basically feel like three different classes within a class. So they're kind of bringing some stuff back. So examples, like as me being a Warlock main in retail, Warlocks, all specs are getting curses back. So Curse of Doom, Curse of Tongues, Curse of Recklessness, Curse of Weakness are going to be available across the board. They talked about bringing back Ritual of Doom to all specializations, which is really cool. And then they're taking some stuff out of the talent tree that is just deemed to be a necessity, and they're opening it up to the class again. So theoretically, we're going to be doing some retuning in terms of talents and stuff. So for instance, with Warlocks, instead of having to choose Demonic Circle as a talent, it's just going to be a baseline ability yet again. And there's going to be different options in the talent tree there. Branching out to other classes and stuff, because not everybody plays Warlock. Mage, if you're from the classic side of things, watching my stream or my YouTube and stuff, in BFA right now, you're a Fire Mage, you're an Arcane Mage, or you're a Frost Mage, and that means that you're basically only casting spells of that school. But if you watch Classic, one of the great things about playing Mage is you have three schools. So if you get kicked while casting a Frostbolt, well, then you turn around, you cast a Fireball, or you Arcane Explode, or you channel Arcane Missiles, because you've got different spell schools, so you can get kicked on one, you can swap to another, and it gives you options to work with. In the game as it exists right now, if you're a Frost Mage, you get kicked on Frost, you're kind of boned. There's not a whole lot of options. So they talked about how mages are going to go back to being mages, master of the arcane elements. So Frost Mages will have fire abilities, will have arcane abilities yet again, and vice versa between the different things. If you're Frost, you're going to get, or if you're Fire, you're going to get Frost and Arcane. So that's really cool. That's going to mean Mage probably is going to gain a bunch of value in PvP yet again because of the being able to kick and stuff. But it's going to just provide a variety in gameplay, and you're going to feel more like a Mage again instead of like a Frost Mage. Hunters are getting stuff like Kill Shot, Hunter's Mark, Eye of the Beast back. Druids, Ursul's Vortex, and Cyclone are coming back. Cyclone's no longer just a PvP talent. You'll be able to use it as CC for like Mythic Plus and stuff like that. DKs are getting Raised Dead back. They're getting Summon Gargoyle baseline for all specializations regardless of talent. And Anti-Magic Zone is coming back instead of just being a PvP talent. Monks, they didn't mention anything. Paladins are getting auras, so Diva Aura, Ret Aura, Consecration Aura. They're coming back, so you're going to see those buffs. You're going to see that. Consecration becomes baseline for all specializations, so dropping your holy junk on the ground, it's going to be a thing. Hammer of Wrath is coming back as a baseline talent. priests, kind of similar to mage. Instead of just being holy or just being shadow, they're kind of bringing it back to the spec. So mind blast, flash heal, shadow word, death are going to be available to all specializations. Rogues, poisons are coming back to the class. You don't have to be assassination to have a poison. You can play subtlety or pirate rogue, and you'll be able to utilize poisons again, because poisons are an important part of the class fantasy. Shiv is coming back baseline instead of just a PvP talent. Shamans are getting some of their totems back. So stuff like Tremor Totem, Searing Totem, Healing Stream Totem, Cap Totem, they're talking about as being baseline for all specs again, which is great because Shaman's totems are kind of a big deal. Primal Strike and Frost Shock were listed as coming out of the talents and being baseline yet again. And then Warriors, stuff like Shield Block, Challenging Shout, Shattering Throw, coming back as like a baseline thing. So unpruning stuff's coming out. I think those are all very good. I'm curious to see exactly what it goes, how it scales, and all that stuff. But being a warlock again instead of being a Destro warlock, being a mage again instead of being a fire mage, I think is going to be very healthy for the game. So I'm looking forward to that. As we talked about, there's going to be the level squish, which is really cool. I think it's needed because things are getting ridiculous. And one of my key complaints about BFA's leveling experience is there was no sense of progression. You went from 110 to 120 and you gained effectively nothing until you hit max level. So as we're coming back now, they're trying to make levels meaningful yet again. So theoretically 50 to 60, you're going to be gaining something along the way, which is great. We don't know what it is. We haven't seen it. It wasn't testable. So hopefully it pans out and ends up playing the way that it should. But they talked about they want each level to feel useful, to feel meaningful. What that means is they're condensing all of the previous expansions up to and including Battle for Azeroth into the 1 to 50 leveling experience. And their concern was, with that being like an insanely condensed thing, new players would feel a little overwhelmed. So what they're doing is they're doing a starting zone. If you have a new account, you're going to go in and you're going to play in a new starting zone, level 1 through 10, in an area known as Exile's Reach. It's going to kind of walk you through the basics of Warcraft. It's going to put you through a mini dungeon. It's going to kind of get you on your feet. And then from there, you're going to talk to Chromie, and you can basically choose whichever expansion you feel like leveling 10 to 50 in. If you have a pre-existing account, you can choose to do the new starting zone if you want to, or you can ignore it, jump right in, and start playing. And if you're like, you know what, I haven't done a true Burning Crusade leveling experience in a while, then you can opt to start out in BC, and you can go through and you can level and you can dungeon and you can theoretically get a bunch of those 50 levels in TBC and skip all of the other content if you so desire. So I think it's healthy. It gives you an option to go through. It's supposed to be a fairly condensed and efficient leveling experience. So they talked about how with allied races and stuff like that, it's going to be even easier to reach max level with a given allied race, given the new system. But hopefully it breathes some lifeblood in. It gives meaning to the levels again. It feels more manageable, more specific. The fear always is whenever you do a condense of this sort, stat squish or whatever, like with a level squish, I assume stats are going to be squished as well, which always brings into question, how hard will it be to go farm old content for those of us that are mount collectors and want to go do our, weekly Dragon Souls or our weekly Firelands or something like that, trying to get, given mounts. Will this affect things? They've always been very conscious of that. They didn't mention it specifically to the best of my memory, but I assume that things will work out, and that's something that's going to be on the top of their minds as they go into it. An interesting tidbit along that is they're opening up also, I believe, any class can play Death Knight, and Death Knight start at level 1. I believe Demon Hunters also start at level 1, although they didn't talk about opening up the restrictions there specifically. So there's going to be more options to play those, and you'll be able to actually play through the leveling experience with those classes. So get excited for your Death Knight Vulpera, level 1 to 50, get your Heritage Armor, go nuts, and then, get yourself into Shadowlands. So hype. The new zones, like we talked about, so Maldraxxus, Bastion, Ardenwald or whatever, and Ravendreth, they're controlled by the given covenants, but those are also the questing zones. There's going to be one giant capital city, Orboros or something like that, or Oribos, I believe is how it's said. I believe it's a neutral faction, or a faction-neutral capital city, a la your Shatrath, your Dalaran. So we're going to see all the people there hanging out, doing stuff. It's kind of in the middle. It's supposed to be like a hub of the afterlife because we're going into the land of the dead. So it'll be interesting to see who's there. But it'll be cool, I guess. And then there's a zone known as the Maw. The Maw is going to be dangerous. It's going to be scary. There's some mechanics in there where the longer you spend there, they become aware of your presence. That's where all the bad guys go when they die that are irredeemable. But it's also supposedly where everyone goes lately because of some sort of mystery that we're going to uncover with regards to death and the functions of death being broken in the current version of the game. So it'll be interesting to see what the storytelling is. Like I said before, the leveling experience through those for the first time through is going to be linear. So you're going to go in a very specific order from zone to zone to zone, which I believe is going to lead to a more cohesive storytelling. One of my complaints with BFA has been that the stories feel disjoined. They feel irrelevant and they feel kind of scattered. And I think part of that is due to the fact that Blizzard adopted the level where you want mentality, which is cool, up until the point that you find yourself trying to tell a good story that needs to make sense from literally whatever angle you come at. So if you say, no, this is the way that it happened and put a story together from point A to point B, I think it's going to allow the storytelling to hopefully be a little bit more, I don't know, cohesive, for lack of a better term, and hopefully that'll lead to some more interesting stuff. So excited about that. The last thing that's not that we haven't talked about is a new feature known as the Torghast Tower of the Damned. So that exists, I believe, in the Maw, and it's going to be this like infinitely scaling question mark. Like you climb the tower and you can just go level by level, and as you complete levels, the mobs get more and more difficult. So it's kind of like a Mythic Plus, I guess, that like in that you can continue to push the difficulty. It's got an interesting mechanic where as you beat each given level, you're gaining new abilities as you go. So you can kind of commit to a build that enhances, a certain type of damage or a certain type of whatever, survivability or something as you push your way through. As you do that kind of stuff, though, it's not permanent, so it's not going to stick with you. It's just for a given tower run, and supposedly they're bringing back legendaries, is what they said, and acquiring either the resources or the mats or whatever it is to craft these legendaries is going to come from the tower. So the tower is going to be a progression system in and of itself. It's going to, in some way, cater to your endgame experience, but there hasn't been a ton of information about it. Druid, who's hanging out in the chat here, may be able to provide, and Vandy's been playing it too, but I believe that it similar to a Final Fantasy mechanic with some sort of Tower of the Damned or something like that, or Tower of the Dead, or I don't know what it's called, but it's a mechanic that exists elsewhere. So it's not an original concept. Palace of the Dead is what Vandy's saying. So it's been around, it's been tested. I think it's supposed to be fun. I'm very interested to see how it works out because I think it's supposed to be a pretty significant part of the endgame experience. They talked about it being kind of like a similar to a Mage Tower thing where you can play by yourself, but you can also play up to 5 people. So it has the potential to be replayable, constantly evolving, changing, and important throughout the entirety of the expansion. My hope is that it does all those things. My fear is that they're going to commit a lot of resources to it, the way that they committed a lot of resources to Warfronts, and that it's going to end up being a bust, or that it's going to end up being difficult or something along the lines. Not difficult in terms of gameplay, but it's going to be difficult for them to keep it relevant. So they're going to have like a lot of really weird gimmicks, or they're going to force you to do stuff by having to constantly go in there to update your legendaries or something like that. And it's going to become just an island expedition chore as opposed to something you want to go do. But again, like we had some buddies from our guild that were actually at BlizzCon. They had the floor demo, but none of that stuff was testable. They just gave you the starting zone bastion, and apparently it was just a bunch of fetch quests, so it gave a very poor feel for what the new expansion is going to be like. So we've got a lot of questions with regard to the tower. We've got a lot of interest. It has a lot of potential, but there's a lot of risk associated with something like that. So I am cautiously optimistic, as I am with all things Blizzard these days. I'm happy at a lot of the stuff they're saying, but I'm not convinced that this is the savior of WoW, that this is going to bring back all of the nostalgia of Classic and it's going to make me want to play retail over Classic. There's a lot of stuff to be worked out. There's a lot of information we need to have before we can make any hard conclusions one way or the other. But at least I didn't come out of it going, God, that expansion looks terrible. Like, I was like, well, that looks cool. The artwork's incredible. The cutscene was insane. Like, the stuff they're talking about, unpruning classes, squishing the levels, linear storytelling. They got rid of Azerite power or AP or whatever, so there's not an infinite grind, which is great. Like, they're doing a lot of the right stuff, and they owned up to a lot of the mistakes that they've made. But it's this kind of infinite cycle, I feel like, with Blizzard, where we have one expansion where they're like, man, we learned from all our mistakes, and they do a great thing, and then they go and they make a whole slew of the same mistakes again. So I don't know. I don't want to judge it harshly, but I don't want to say that, like, I'm in, I'm sold, I'm there. Like, I'm going to play it. I'm hoping to get beta access again. Blizzard, if you're watching, shoot me beta access whenever you get there. Like, I've got a lot of questions to be answered before I can write off on this as being the savior of retail. Let's see, what about the new mana thing for the factions? Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, there's like reputation, or there's, yeah, it's what do they call it? Not ether, anima. You got to collect anima for your different factions, and that empowers abilities and levels up your followers. So they said we're getting rid of AP, but yeah, there certainly is a system in place where you have to go and collect a bunch of stuff. And that, again, it comes into the, have we learned our lesson, or are we just saying what we think we've learned and we're not necessarily doing anything? So I don't know. There's a lot of questions to be answered. There's a lot of stuff that we need to learn about. There's a lot of things that they need to explain. They need to flesh out. They need to test. They need to balance. But it at least looks promising. Fingers crossed. Like, I don't really know that we know a whole lot more than that. Like if I'm here, like, I'm just gonna scroll through. So let's take a look here. Here's the official Blizzard World of Warcraft homepage or whatever for Shadowlands. So they've got like the thing rolling in the background. Coming in 2020, so sometime next year. Not insane. Welcome to Shadowlands. 5 new zones like we talked about. So you got Ardenwald. Here's your Scourge and Flyer, Maldraxxus. Revendreth, your vampire people, the Maw, which is where the tower is. I think that's a screenshot from inside the tower. Bastion, the super happy place, and then here's your little fairyland, Ardenwall again. Ouroboros, the undying city. So yeah, we got a city, a faction neutral thing. We got the covenants like we talked about, with some abilities, some transmogs, some mounts. It's all well and good. Torghast, the Tower of the Damned. Leveling, so like we talked about, you get your leveling experience, and then pre-purchase, where again, if you get the base game, you miss out on a bunch of the cool stuff, but then they force you to buy a level boost for 120, which sucks. Join the beta, you can opt in, and that's all there is to it. So that's all we know. That's the meat of the Shadowlands thing right now. So there's a lot of information that we need, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm excited, but I'm nervous. So, fingers crossed that things are going to be good, but we'll see. Moving right along, let's talk about other BlizzCon stuff, because while we are a WoW stream, like, I like to talk about all things Blizzard as much as I can, so I'm excited about that. Hearthstone, the big announcement, they've got their, as is tradition, new card pack or whatever, so Descent into Dragons. I'm not going to watch the trailer. It's goofy, it's funny, whatever. It's kind of neat. But they've got some new Dragons cards. I don't know enough about Hearthstone to say whether they're good or bad. But the cool thing for me has been the announcement of a new thing called Hearthstone Battlegrounds. I think I put it on stream, but maybe I haven't. But the best thing that I can say is it's basically Hearthstone auto chess. So you go in, you play Hearthstone, and you got, like, it's an 8-player thing where you choose a commander that gives you some ability, and you kind of build out your board and you compete. If you had the virtual ticket, if you pre-ordered Descent to Dragons, or if you attended BlizzCon in person, you get beta access to their early testing. I believe that it's going to be free to play when it goes live, because I don't think it's tied to Descent of Dragons. I think it just happens to be coming out at the same time, but I don't know. But it's a lot of fun if you enjoy auto chess or whatever the other version of it is. You'll probably like the Hearthstone version. It's pretty fun. It follows the Hearthstone lore. You got the similar cards or whatever to what exists in the game as it is, but you don't have to own anything because you build it as you go. cards cost 3 gold. You get 3 of the same card. It upgrades to a legendary version of it or whatever, like a golden card, which boosts its stats and stuff like that, and then gives you access to like another free card. I don't know, it's fun. I enjoyed it. It's worth checking out if you've got access and if you're at all interested in auto chess and or Hearthstone. The other announcements that we saw coming out of BlizzCon for some of the smaller stuff, there's a new commander coming to StarCraft. So yet again, StarCraft sees almost no new stuff. So if you do co-op stuff, I don't even remember which co-op commander it is, but there's a new one. Go enjoy that. And then Heroes of the Storm, Deathwing, who had been announced prior to the show, was all they talked about. They're like, hey, he's cool. Supposedly he's insane. From what I heard, like from the people that played at BlizzCon, he cannot be healed. So he just comes in with a ton of armor and a ton of health, and he just crushes, but he has to hearth back to the starting zone to heal. So like if you're running healers in your comps, you can't actually apply anything to him. And as he takes damage, he progressively loses armor until he like transforms and then he regains something like that. So sounds like an interesting hero. If you had the virtual ticket, you get him for free. Otherwise, look for him on the PTR, I think now-ish, and then coming to the game fairly soon. But that's really all they had to say about Heroes of the Storm, Hearthstone, and StarCraft. So moving on, we've got 2 more big announcements that came out of the show. Back here. And let's start with the opener from the show. Fair warning, it's a little graphic.
Thy divine wisdom guides me.
Quiet.
Though my path is wrought of darkness.
Shut up. They have our scent. Run!
Your mind. He's not going to make it.
He has to.
Blessed Akarat, thy eternal light protects me. Thy divine wisdom guides
Look at me! All the gold we want is right there.
No, I just came here for knowledge.
They're coming!
I know.
Get over here!
Now, breach the seal. Get us through that door.
Oh, light, help me. By 3 they come. By 3 thy way opens. Blood show. This doesn't make any sense. Blood. Blood is the key. Blood is the key!
What?
I need 2 of you!
No! Go! I'll hold them! Go!
So, it says the blood of the willing goes...
You gotta be kidding me! It worked!
We have to help him!
He's dead already.
Oh well, cheer up. Gold splits better 3 ways instead of 4. Must be hidden here somewhere. Read this.
By 3 they come, by 3 thy way opens, by the blood of them willing. Hail. Hail the Creator. Ha! Hail the daughter of... Oh no. No, no, no.
What about the coin? What's it say?
This is forbidden. This is a summoning. I cannot speak this.
Don't lie to me!
We came here for treasure. What is this place?
I don't know. Maybe it's a temple. Or a tomb, or... Blessed Akrat, thy eternal light protects me. Thy divine wisdom guides me. Though my path is wrought with darkness, guide my soul to thy sacred ways.
Only of this we see thy salvation. By 3 they come. By 3 thy way opens. By the blood of the willing. We call thee home. Come.
Blessed Akarat, thy eternal light protects me. Thy divine wisdom guides me. Though my path is
Open
wrought
your
with
eyes.
eternal light protects me. Eternal light protects me. Eternal light protects me. Eternal light protects me. Eternal
There
light...
is no light here. You came to the darkness for knowledge.
Yes.
And all the knowledge you seek is here. Surrender. Speak the words. Call her home.
By 3 they come. By 3 thy way opens. By the blood of the willing, we call thee home. Hail, daughter of hatred. Creator of sanctuary. Hail. Lilith.
save us.
So brutal, right? Diablo 4, everyone knew basically that it was going to come. After the whole debacle with Diablo Immortal last year, people freaking out with all the Diablo themed stuff and not seeing Diablo 4, it would have been a crime not to announce Diablo 4. That trailer was insane. It got me super hyped, but like I will openly admit I'm not a gigantic action RPG guy. So my understanding of the game genre and like, you know, competitors and PoE and stuff like that is fairly limited. As they went into the deep dive, it sounds like Diablo 4 is a ways off. What they did tell us so far is that it's going to launch with 5 playable classes. Thus far, they've only announced 3, so we know that the Barbarian is returning, the Sorceress is in it, and then the triumphant return from, I believe, Diablo 2 of the Druid. So those are the big classes. Those were playable on the floor. Apparently, they're quite fun to play. From what I understand, but those are the 3 we know. There's 2 more classes. We can speculate all day. There's not really a true healer of any sort in there. I don't think the druid does a ton of healing. It's more of like a elemental shapeshifter damage dealer, from what I understand. So I don't know if they bring like a cleric or if they bring back a Joanna kind of character or some sort of a priestess or priest or something like that. But who knows? But we know for sure there's going to be barbarian, druid, sorceress playable in the launch of Diablo 4. Supposedly there's more character customization than they've ever done before in terms of like the way that you can adjust their appearances. There's going to be a skill tree or talent tree. I think kind of similar to PoE, but I've never played Path of Exile, so I honestly can't tell you one way or the other, but it does give you more customization within your character, more depth of gameplay, which also probably makes it a little bit more grindy, but a lot of the action RPG players like that kind of thing, and I don't blame them. They were very keen on saying it's a return to darkness, the return to the gritty, violent, gory look that, you know, Diablo is known for, and that trailer certainly set the tone for that. So there's going to be a lot more blood effects and stuff like that going forward. You're going to see a lot of things with regard to that kind of walking in. Oh, it sounds like I'm being invited to a game. I think York probably wants to play, but we're going to finish up here going through this, and then we'll take a look at playing some more. But big, dark, occult demons, things that. There's going to be open world stuff as well as the in-game dungeons and stuff like that, which means for more open world PvP, which I guess was a big part of Diablo 2. Like I said, I didn't play a ton of Diablo 2 or 3, so my knowledge of it isn't huge. But they're saying the world's going to be so big that mounts are going to be required to go from place to place within Sanctuary. The maps are designed to be much harder to maneuver and like see because they're just that big. Standard progression with legendary sets, runes, mythic items, stuff like that, trading, crafting, all that stuff. Hardcore mode, all of that's coming back. Seasonal updates, standard Diablo from top to bottom, but it is going to be a ways out. I didn't watch the lore stuff. I'm not smart on all the Sanctuary lore, but everybody's super hype about Lilith. Then the armor and the ability to like customize the way you looks really, really cool. So I absolutely will play it. But I don't know a ton about it. But Diablo fans rejoice, get hyped, but they didn't mention anything to my knowledge about Diablo 3, so there may be a bit of a wait, and you may be kind of out of luck in terms of what we're getting or what you have to wait for along the way. And then finally, moving along to a game that I play a bit more, and we've been playing a bit of today. Let's take a look at the final trailer that I wanted to take a look at here and rejoice in its glory.
What's on your mind, May?
Do we have enough people for this mission?
As long as we stick together, we'll be fine. If you're going to show, now would be a good time.
Attention! This is your captain speaking. We are on final approach to Paris.
That's our cue.
You may now power on your electronic devices. Weather is mostly cloudy, with a 100% chance of null sector invasion. Winston, clear as a spot to land. We'll be right behind you.
You better be.
Why is null sector attacking now?
I don't know, May. But the people down there need help. And right now, we are all they've got. Bonjour, officer. We're here to help.
C'était un singe?
Good work, May.
Thanks! Watch your back!
Get the civilians to the ship.
You got it!
What was that?
Take cover!
May, stay with me! Winston!
May,
She needs help. We can't stay here.
Tracer, get everyone out of here. I'll hold the line.
But you said to stick together.
Don't worry. I'll be right behind you.
You'd better be.
Kenji!
Yes! The cavalry's here! Hello, Winston!
Echo!
Let's get you back in the fight.
Interlock shields!
How are we going to stop this thing?
May, your backpack!
What?
Cheers, my friends!
Hi, Lena. Brigitte? Oh my gosh, you've grown! Oh, everyone, this is May.
Hi, everyone.
Nice to meet you.
Reinhardt.
Good to have you on board.
Thank you.
Monsieur, does this mean Overwatch is back?
Yes. Yes, we are.
Okay. So obviously insane, right? Overwatch, they've always just absolutely crushed it when it comes to the cinematics and stuff. Super emotional, super awesome, super cool, but it tells us nothing about Overwatch 2. So the TLDR on the Overwatch 2 experience is that they're adding basically a whole bunch of PvE content. There's going to be story modes, there's going to be character progression, you're going to be able to level up characters as you go. And that means that we're going to learn a lot more about the individual like stories of those given characters. I think they're putting a lot more focus on letting us learn about Overwatch and kind of what's happening with Overwatch and Talon and the different factions as we go forward. What it means for the competitive gameplay side, which is what we do most of right now in Overwatch 1, is if you own the original game, nothing really changes for you competitively. As new heroes come out, it's my understanding that they'll be available to both Overwatch 1 and 2. The new game type that was announced, Push, which sounds awesome, is going to be available with Overwatch 1 and 2. But what Overwatch 2 brings to us is that PvE content, which is going to be an expanded upon, replayable version of stuff like the Uprising event, which is super, super fun. And like there's kind of some pretty cool stuff in there as you go. So like as you level up Tracer, you'll be able to kind of tech out a talent tree that will only apply to the PvE side. It doesn't affect the competitive side. And competitive Tracer is Tracer, Ryan is Ryan, whatever. But there's some cool abilities, like May, for instance, on the PvE side, as you level up, you can take one of the talents where when she ice blocks, she also does this like AoE effect around her that freezes anyone near her, which is pretty cool. Ryan's Shatter, instead of just being a frontal cone, is like a 360 around him and can do like a bunch of knockdown damage to anyone, which is really neat. So there's a lot of cool stuff there that allows you to replay. There's the straight up story mission as you bounce your way around the world and play through, learn about the Null sector, Talon, Overwatch, all the different like factions that are at play. And then there's replayable like hero missions or whatever that, you know, have changing objective map types, things of that nature. So we're excited about it. I think it's going to be very cool. The storyline is awesome. The cinematic team is insane. Yeah, and that's like super emotional, right? It gets you like right in the feels as you're going through, like the music, everything, the tone. Overwatch has always absolutely crushed it. But what I've said before, and I'll say again, my biggest fear is that they're putting a lot of resources in Overwatch 2. They're really excited about it. The reception wasn't amazing from the community because A, it was leaked, and B, there wasn't a lot of discussion about the current game. So we know the names of 2 heroes, but we know nothing about them in terms of when they're coming, what they do, and we don't know if that's only going to come. Jeff had straight up said that when the game launches, there's going to be multiple new maps, multiple like the new game type, and multiple new heroes. But does that mean we have to wait until the launch of Overwatch 2 to see any change in the current competitive 6v6, or are they going to continue to support Overwatch as it exists? We'll get, you know, maybe Echo, and I can never remember the name of the other chick that they showcased in one of the other like gameplay trailers or whatever going forward. But we don't really know. Again, like just like Shadowlands and Diablo 4, they're like, hey, big stuff coming out, but and Jeff was very specific. We're going to go dark for a while. You're not going to hear a lot of news because our team is hard at work and we want to do the best that we can to produce a great product, which is good, but it's also concerning because like I don't want to be stuck in the same meta 4, 5, 6 seasons in a row. GOATS was painful for how long it lasted, and all things considered, it wasn't that insane. So if we're not seeing any hero balances, we're not seeing any new map introductions, we're not seeing anything different season to season, it kind of makes it hard to come back to Overwatch over and over and over again. So that's my concern, but I am excited to see kind of what's going on for the future. The cinematics are insane. Jeff Kaplan seemed really excited about it. I know the teams are really pumped, and it looks like Blizzard has a potentially promising future with regards to all their different franchises going forward. but they need to deliver on the stuff. And the timeline for a lot of things, like again, Diablo 4 could be 2 to 3 years out. We don't expect to see Shadowlands until probably late next year, which begs the question, what's 8.3 going to bring us? And then Overwatch, there was literally no timetable given, so who knows if it's right around the corner or if it's a year or two away. We don't know. We're just going to have to sit back, wait, and see. But that's kind of the big stuff coming out of BlizzCon. Obviously, the esports scene was insane. Team USA, my boys, pulling it out, winning, taking the championship from South Korea when it came to the Overwatch World Cup, which was huge. Those games were insanely hype. I highly recommend, if you're a fan of competitive Overwatch, go watch it because they were really, really, really fun to watch. Although the World Cup as a whole, I feel like wasn't handled particularly well. The advertising and the media for it, the amount of knowledge and information going into it was pretty lackluster. The games themselves were pretty hyped, and it was really fun to watch. I felt the absence of Heroes of the Storm in the competitive esports scene, which was pretty sad. I'd love to see them kind of come back. Hearthstone I've never been big into, but I think the first female won the Hearthstone Invitational or whatever, which is really cool. To see some gamer girls get in there and crush. I don't know much about it, but that's what I had read. So if that's true, that's awesome. If it's not, I'm sorry. The MDI was the same teams that have been doing it. There's basically 3 teams that care and are good. So you've got Method EU, Method NA, and Abracadabra. And as I would say, if I was a betting man, I bet the Vegas odds put it that way. Method EU won, Method NA took number 2, and I believe Abracadabra was number 3. Surprise, surprise. It was kind of cool to see they brought back some of like Reaping and stuff, some of the older affixes, but all things considered, I think the Mythic Plus meta is fairly stale and needs a big shakeup, and that wasn't discussed at all in Shadowlands. Arena, I didn't follow a ton. It was just a EU versus EU, and I think Method Black, who a lot of people said should win, did win. So good for them. I guess they did pretty well. The defending BlizzCon champions from last year didn't even qualify, so Method Orge wasn't even present. And the fan favorites, the move wasn't there. Cloud9 was doing pretty good, but they got stomped by Wildcard. So it is what it is. StarCraft, we had another foreigner in the finals, this time an Italian, which was pretty cool, but Dark finally came through and reclaimed the crown for South Korea. As where Cyril was the first non-Korean to win the StarCraft 2 crown last year, was unable to defend his title. So a Zerg in the name of Dark, who's been trying and has been very good for quite some time, came in and took it all. But esports was great as always. I wish that they'd put a little more emphasis on it, but I like the format in terms of the way that they streamed some of it. Was pretty good. So Vandy's saying his feeling phase 3 will come out during the fall, 8.3, to keep people subbed. Yeah, we'll see. Or in the lull rather, after 8.3. So yeah, if 8.3 is coming up soon, then maybe we'll see BWL come out after that, just kind of alternate between the stuff. I had heard a rumor that they went back to the PTR and are doing a lot of additional testing because the feedback for the rework of Titan Forging with corruption and stuff was pretty negative. I will openly admit I am very far behind in my knowledge of 8.3. So I need to take a look at that, and I'll probably make a separate video, talk about that on stream some other time. But the big focus was the new stuff in Shadowlands and stuff going forward. But I'm excited. I'm excited for the future of Blizzard. I'm excited for the future of gaming. I hope that a lot of these projects kind of pan out. But we'll see. But I don't know. That's my spiel. Thanks for watching. Thanks for talking. We're going to go play some games again. So.